All right, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you happen to be. Once again, thank you for attending today's webinar by DotNetNuke. We're going to be talking about SharePoint and DotNetNuke, the best of both worlds. We're going to be talking about the SharePoint connector specifically that's available in Enterprise Edition. So my name is Will Stroll. I'm going to be doing this presentation, and before we begin, we have a couple of housekeeping type things to get rid of or to go over real quick. So the first thing is, if you can hear me, please use the raise your hand feature in the control panel and click raise your hand so that way we know that the audio is coming through okay. All right, thank you very much. Next, if you can see my slide okay, if you can see that little tree in the middle of the screen there and you saw that slide progress, please once again use your raise your hand feature there so we know that everything went okay. Excellent. Thank you. We appreciate your feedback. All right, so you're definitely going to have questions throughout the webinar. At least I hope so. And if you do, please feel free to ask the questions as soon as they come up. Use the Ask a Question feature in the control panel that you have, and you can ask questions at any time. We will be going over your questions at the end of the webinar, and we'll go over as many as we possibly can before the end of our time. But anything that we do not get to, we will definitely respond to you via email. We generally get those turned around in less than 48 hours. So feel free to ask any questions at all. All right, so talking about DotNetNuke, we should all probably remember the internet as it was about 10 years ago. Websites were very static. There were very few things that most people could do with their website, and mostly they just displayed contact information, kind of a brochureware type of sites. So in 2000, it was very interesting because if you remember back then, it was very difficult to try to know what the web would look like in 10 years, to know what features to prepare for, to know how to position your company in 10 years. And so by 2010, the web had changed dramatically. For the most part, it was impossible to predict that e-commerce, social, and mobile would become those golden standards that we operate today, and especially to reach the minimum expectations of your visitors. Now, if you look back from 2000 to now, you may have been able to look at e-commerce and be able to predict that one, but it was very difficult to predict that 2010. And so, how do you do that for 2020? How do you plan for the next 10 years? And this is where DotNetNuke comes in. Your website is your most important business asset. So we make it our mission to provide the best-of-class tools and features to help your website be updated now and in the future. So no matter what the future holds, it's flexible enough to grow and adapt not only to the changes in the internet, but also the changes that you and your business require, whether it's integrating applications or changing platforms of particular tools, maybe it's a CRM or what have you, and DotNetNuke's flexible enough to help you adapt to all those changes. And of course, every organization is under extreme pressure. We feel it every day, whether it's we're talking about competition or otherwise. So, some of the challenges that you're facing include the growth of your needs, the speed of those changes, and the cost of keeping up with those changes. So this change in complexity, especially with the explosion of content, is something that you should not keep you from staying away from your competition. All right, so today businesses do struggle to keep up with those changing standards and expectations. We recognize that, you recognize that, and we want to help you stay ahead of that curve, by providing a world-class platform and a content management system. And so by using this, the largest content management system out there, you can very quickly adapt to those changes now and in the future. And so just a little bit about who we are. We are the world's #1 content management system. We know that for many reasons. We have over 1,700 commercial customers in basically 2 years. We are the largest, most successful open source platform, and Inc. 500 recognized that. We are in the Inc. 500 as of this last year, and we're 23rd overall in software and #9 in all of Silicon Valley. So it's pretty impressive. Now, from where we stand as a platform, we have over 700,000 websites, known production websites out there. There's probably many, many more. We have over 7 million downloads as of today, and we have over 1 million community members. And we are the only commercial we have the only commercial marketplace in the content management space, and we have over 10,000 extensions available for you. So very much like your smartphones, you have a place to be able to install applications on your phone and make it exactly what you want. You have that very same experience with your website through making your content management system have whatever features and functionalities that you're looking for. So just to kind of go back to, DotNetNuke really is the hub of your most important business asset. When you think about businesses today and the customers, whether they're other businesses or actual, end user type customers, the first thing that they look for is, what's on your website? I need to get information. How do I get in touch with you? How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I get information? They are coming to your website to do that. So, you need to make sure that you are flexible enough to not just fit today's needs, but tomorrow's as well. Now, DotNetNuke has quite a few customers. I mentioned there's over 1,700. These are just some of them. But this is really to talk about the, DotNetNuke doesn't fit any specific vertical. It's a very flexible application. It fits many different verticals and use cases. And you can see that from, whether we're talking about the government of, the United Nations or the U.S. Army or other type of organizations like Bush Industries, True Value, Sears, Harvard. And so you can see it really does run the gamut of the various types of verticals that you might be in. It also fits organizations of any size. So if you are a smaller company, you maybe have 5 employees, there are companies that do that very same thing. They use DotNetNuke to run their company or display their public-facing or internal-facing websites. Or companies as large as Time Warner Cable, they have over 47,000 people in their company, and they use DotNetNuke for their intranet. So business people really do love DotNetNuke, and they love it for many reasons. Not the least of those reasons is for the fact that they no longer have to wait for IT to make changes. They can just go ahead, log in, and with the permissions that they have for the various areas, they are able to just make changes as they need. And if things need to go through approval processes, they will. It is a multi-channel online presence, so it allows them to have multiple brands, multiple sites. It's very fast to deploy new sites. We have examples like the University of New Orleans. They deployed a whole new series of websites. I think it was 200 total sites on a single running instance of DotNetNuke, in something like 2 weeks. And it's cost effective. I mean, in 2 weeks, that's a pretty fast rollout. You can imagine the return on investment for that. And of course, it's fully supported, so you don't have to worry about if your site goes down, who do I call? Designers, developers, basically anybody in IT, they love .NET as well. It's very easy to support. Once again, they can very fast roll out a particular application. They don't have to build everything that they need. They have options. Sometimes they can just buy an application to install into .NET versus building it, and that's a huge time savings. It is definitely battle tested. We've been around for many years at this point, about 9, just over 9. So it's battle tested, it's very secure, and of course if they do need to build something, they absolutely can. There are no limitations for what they can build. Anything that they want to integrate with or anything they can think of to build on the ASP.NET platform, they can build in .NET. And of course we're backwards compatible, so going forward you can rest easy knowing that anything that you build today will work tomorrow. So we're going to talk about a specific solution, but we're going to talk about solutions in general for just a moment. So .NET has long had the ability and the reputation of allowing you to adapt to the fast-changing technologies and demands. I kind of spoke to that a little bit earlier. But we've first seen this with content management. .NET is well known for its content management with features like granular permissions, content workflow. Maintaining content is extremely easy. But with over 2 billion people in the world, it's very difficult these days to find a way for your content to reach all those people, to find that target audience. So the very next step for your content is to start allowing your visitors to use built-in collaboration tools to reach the sets of people that are most meaningful to you or your business. So you're going to see in our upcoming 6.2 release, it's right around the corner, we are adding significant social collaboration features to make that possible. And so this release is right around the corner once again, so keep your eye on our webinar page. We're going to have a webinar that speaks specifically to all these collaboration tools. And our webinar page, if you're not familiar, is on DotNetNuke.com. You will see the updates there. Now, the other thing that people need is a way to manage documents. And we already have a built-in feature to do this. We call it the Document Library module. And so you can do all your typical document management features there. But there are specialists in all three of these areas that we talked about: content management, collaboration management, and document management. But integrating them is all very expensive and usually difficult. But DotNetNuke now does this for you. So together with the content management, collaboration, and document management, we allow you to create a web engagement platform in a way that's very easy and affordable to deploy. And so now with the SharePoint connector, this is our way of providing you with not only these different ways for engaging with your customers or your visitors, but this is also our way of providing you with the best-of-breed document management right out of the box. So when you talk about online document management, there's you're sharing, you're managing, you're collaborating, and you're controlling the quality documents. And that's not a trivial thing to do. It's very complicated, and in the process of solving this problem has a lot of stakeholders, a lot of people that you need to consider. So first, there's in the SharePoint environment specifically, you have SharePoint web form administrators. They install, maintain, and troubleshoot SharePoint, and they also create new sites or site collections. Then you have the SharePoint site collection administrators. They manage permissions roles, they manage workflow and users on their individual sites, and the first of two groups of these people are usually technical staff, so whether we're talking about the site collection administrators or the web form administrators. And then we have the SharePoint users, so that's basically anybody that is allowed to log into it. So they have the task of updating, managing, and sharing documents internally. These are usually people that are doing that. They could be people that are in your typical departments, whether it's finance, marketing, sales, HR, or what have you. Now this group would also want to identify and reuse these documents on their public website, but they don't usually have that level of access or the level of technical expertise to do that. So that presents a problem. But finally, we have our standard website administrator or webmaster. So for your typical website, you might have one of these people. And by your website, it could be your public site, it could be your internal site. But they're the person or the team of people that maintains the content on that site. And so this particular area, this brings them up to a bottleneck. So you have this bottleneck that you have to deal with to implement and maintain these same documents on your public intranet or extranet site. This usually involves a lot of back and forth email, transactions to get documents posted in the right places, the right way, and updated on time. And as you might already know, this is a very time-consuming task, and it can be error-prone. So businesses aren't interested in a manual process, especially one that could be automated. So we're very proud to be able to solve these problems easily and affordably with the SharePoint connector. So this connector allows you to automatically publish documents of your choosing from your SharePoint site to your website in a very secure way. End users don't need the assistance of IT to publish these documents. This allows you to either have multiple documents to go to a single site or a single document to multiple sites. It's really up to you and how you want to use it. And so the SharePoint connector that currently supports 2007, we are announcing today 2010 support as well. That's coming in a release in Q2, so Q2 is just a few days away. So you're going to be able to not only have support for your 2007 version of SharePoint, but also 2010. So at the end of the day, approved documents, they don't need to wait for anybody to make updated documents appear on your website. Your visitors will see the updated documents as soon as they're ready. So the latest information will be available to them without any unnecessary delays. Right? So using the SharePoint connector in DotNetNuke, you can make this incredibly complicated task easy and affordable enough for your organizations, and organizations of any size really. If you use SharePoint, this is really a great fit for you. So you just address all the needs that your stakeholders have with a minimum amount of effort. So we're going to talk about a couple use cases that are around why you might want to use this. And these are by no means an exhaustive list of use cases. These are just to give you an idea of, if you fit into some of these areas, how you might want to think about this. So the first thing is, if you're in any type of organization that has a partner channel of any kind, whether it's affiliates or actual type of partners that might resell for you or anything like that. And so if you have any type of documentation that you're distributing to these people, whether they're salespeople or marketing staff, or you need to just train people that might be in other areas, this type of solution allows you to have a very controlled, automated, and easy way to distribute sales, marketing, training materials. So having materials to let them know what pricing structures you have, having materials to let them, let everybody know what the marketing messages are, and having those type of deliverables to deliver to actual customers, and training materials as well to make sure everybody's on the same page, doing everything the same way. Another area is government, and this really could be any area of government. It could be, your actual federal type of governments, or your local governments, your state governments, or what have you. But some of the ways that you can use this type of solution, and it's being done today, is to distribute permits and making sure they all are on the right version, being distributed to your website. Public event flyers. Most local governments, especially, will have things like fairs and different types of farmer market events and so on. Then there's agendas, for your public meetings, your meeting minutes, job postings, newsletters, and more. Then there's healthcare. Healthcare is a great example. More and more health organizations are trying to have a very easy way for patients to be able to get to information, whether they're records, test results, prescriptions, doctor's notes, especially if you have kids, being able to just print off a doctor note and send it away with your kids on the way to school. Wellness brochures, event flyers, and so on. So those are just 3 easy ways to be able to talk about use cases that you have for SharePoint connector to distribute these documents. So, but how does it work? So in .NETNuke, you're going to have your website. It may not look like this, but if you already have .NETNuke or you've seen it before, this may look familiar to you. But you're going to have a site of some kind. And in our example, we have awesome cycles in our default template. This is an imaginary bicycle store, so you may have a retail store of your own as well. And in your retail store environment, you may have the needs for things like product manuals, maybe press releases. You might have, in a bicycle store, maybe you have maps for different bicycle trails in your area. You would be maintaining this internally in your organization, but at some point you might, in SharePoint, at some point you might need to distribute this or redistribute this to your website, and you need a very secure and flexible way to do that. So some of these documents, so you can see here, detailed specs. That might be on my .NETNuke site, how I might download one of these things. So I click on that button, I get a document that shows me all of my detailed information for these particular bikes. Now, on our SharePoint site, this is a screenshot of 2010. I might be having all these documents here. I would be having all these documents here, collaborating with other people in my organization. There would be people contributing to the different manuals and maps and so on. And so you'd be using SharePoint exactly the way you already are. For your company, there would be no change. You would still be collaborating in the same way, using workflows and having the different views and folders that you're used to having. And but there would be a difference. You would be installing the SharePoint connector in your server and then creating specific views to determine which documents do I want to make sure goes to my public site. Because it doesn't have to be all of them. It can be just specific ones that need to go. So in the SharePoint connector, once you install it, you're able to connect it securely to your .NETNuke site. And when you do that, it's a very secure mechanism. It has the need for security keys and protocols, so it allows you to work through firewalls in a way that is secure for your organization. But when you do that, you're able to create one or more synchronization items. This is a name that we give to these different jobs, basically, that allows SharePoint to say, hey, I'm going to take these documents and I'm going to publish them to this website in this folder. So you're able to choose exactly the folder that you want to see. And so one of the other things you're able to do is also schedule that. So you can see here that these particular jobs, they might have happened at different times, and you are able to specify the intervals. So if you want that to happen every 5 minutes, you want to have that happen once a day, it's really up to you. And you will get comprehensive logging for everything that happens in there. Now this will not just synchronize all the documents that you have in there, but it will also synchronize deletions if you choose to do that. And that is an option, because as we know, if we choose to delete a document here, and we are synchronizing those deletes on our website, at that point, if that document is still linked to, you could have the potential of having a bad link to a document, and that's not the greatest user experience. So what this allows you to do is, with SharePoint 2007 or 2010, you would have no changes, and you would be able to literally make a painless transition to push your documents from your SharePoint installation to DotNetNuke. This doesn't require you to do anything different on DotNetNuke as well, so you get the best of both worlds. You get the best of breed document management, and then once the documents get to DotNetNuke, it's a seamless transition. Your end users that are maintaining the content on your DotNetNuke site would then be able to reuse those documents and point to them and display them in any way that they would normally want to do that. So at the end of the day, this automatic synchronization will end up saving you time and money. Now the beauty of this is it's a push mechanism, so that's part of the secure way of doing this. It only goes one way. So if somebody updates these documents on your .NET site, it will not be required to publish it backwards, and that's good for a couple different reasons. For one, that's not necessarily the most secure way to maintain that. But the other reason is that prevents you from requiring the SharePoint connector that you would need to have that license for SharePoint, and that's not a cheap license, and so that's a great benefit to doing it this way. So there's other features of the Professional Edition and Enterprise Edition. These are just a few of those. So there's also content workflow, and so the content workflow, you have the ability to have content in .NET and when you create that content, you could point to and display documents, and so you could take advantage of workflow as well as granular permissions. And the SharePoint connector will work with your document library, so if you're wanting to use that module and display the documents that way, which is a great way to do that, you can do that as well. There's other options such as the cloud folder providers, Windows Azure, for example, Amazon S3, the Commerce Engine. We have full support for mobile as well, so whether we're talking about seeing your site in a mobile way or you're talking about redirection, and there's also a built-in emulator or viewer to be able to see on your site how exactly this content that you just all put together with .NET and SharePoint, how that looks on your site. And of course there's content staging in Enterprise Edition as well. So content staging allows you to do this all on your staging server and then publish this to your production server. So at the end of the day, .NET is very easy to use. Very fast to roll things out. It has high quality. It's very low cost, so you do have a high return on investment, especially when you're talking about tying in together all these different platforms. So you can get them integrated all into a single place, and it makes the hub of your website a lot faster to roll out, and at the end of the day, you save a ton of time. There's 3 different flavors of .NET. There's of course Community Edition. It's free and open source. It's very well vetted. It's definitely deployed in many hundreds of thousands of websites. And then you get technical support through the .NET forums. There's also Professional Edition. It has additional features on top of Community Edition. It's a fully supported commercial solution, so it's great for large businesses and mission-critical websites. But it includes things like granular permissions, commerce, workflow, mobile, and so on. And through this method, you get unlimited online technical support from .NET Corporation. There's also Enterprise Edition. So that's basically what we were talking about today. Enterprise Edition is the Professional Edition with additional features, and specifically SharePoint connector. That's where you're going to get the SharePoint connector. And the SharePoint connector, once again, is coming out in Q2, so it's coming up very fast around the corner. I know, these type of projects, they can take some time to get rolled out. So today is really the day to start talking to people to get this rolled out into your organization. And so the SharePoint connector with 2010 support is going to be coming out. So I would suggest talking to somebody today about that. There's also additional add-on services. So if you require an additional level of support, we do have elite support. This allows you to pick up the phone and call somebody. You're guaranteed a quicker response time. You also get a one-time installation and upgrade support call to get your project up and running a little bit quicker. Elite support also includes source as well. So the DotNetNuke, once again, is built on an open source platform, but for all the mission critical bits, Elite support will give you the source code for all of those. Developer support services is another add-on. It's a great add-on as well. This is above and beyond what you'd get with regular support. So for anything that's not your standard type of support call, developer support is the way that you would want to handle that. So this allows you to get direct access to our senior-most engineers, people that are dealing with the problems and the issues that you're already dealing with. They were talking to other customers just like yourselves, and they'll help you move from one point to the other in your project. So they can help you either jumpstart your project, get things up faster, or get you out of a jam. So they're really great for not just things that are developer related, but maybe it's performance configuration, search engine optimization, or in this case, maybe it's trying to get things set up properly within SharePoint or something like that. So this is a very critical piece to make sure that your project gets up and running in the time that you want it to. So this is basically a question and direction type of thing. Would definitely point you in the right direction, and it's available in blocks of 10 hours. We also have training. Our training program is led by Chris Hammond. You may probably have heard of him. He's an author of .NETNuke as well as the director of training programs. And so training is provided in a few different ways. There's regular webinars that are training specific. And so these webinars are held monthly, and they're always recorded. So you also have on-demand webinars and training materials. At this point, I think we're over 90 hours of materials that are available for you to make sure that you have the highest level of productivity within .NETNuke. There's also on-site training, and as a matter of fact, Chris Hammond is in Denver this week training some folks up there. On-site training is an option for you if you do require somebody to be on-site to show you how to do things, to teach a large team of people. You can do that as well. And then there's also custom training, whether it's customized on-site or customized webinars. You can do that as well. So anything that's not already available for you in the training library, you can have requested to do in custom training, but that would be a different type of training that you would request. So once again, this is just kind of a visual between the different editions of .NETNuke. There's Community Edition, Professional Edition, and Enterprise Edition. So this is kind of give you an idea of all the different things that are on there. Now, this kind of cuts things short. It brings us to Q&A. We had a little problem with SharePoint, so we intended to actually show you the bits moving back and forth. But unfortunately, that didn't work out. So we're going to move into the question and answer portion at this point. Just a moment, we're pulling up the questions right now. All right, so is this all based on the Enterprise Edition? That is true. SharePoint Connector is only an Enterprise Edition, and 2007 support is available today, and 2010, once again, right around the corner. All right, so where are the documents stored, in the database or the file share? I'm not certain if you were talking about .NETNuke specifically or SharePoint. If you're talking about .NETNuke, it's really up to you and on the folders that you create. So if you create these folders ahead of time in .NETNuke, you have the opportunity to create folders of various types. They could be a database folder where files are actually stored in the database and not in the file system. They could also be one of the other folders that I mentioned earlier. They could be a UNC folder. So that means that the files don't actually live in .NETNuke, but some other server in your organization. Or it could be any other number of folder providers, including a couple of the cloud ones that we have. So the cloud folder providers allow you to store in Windows Azure and Amazon S3 by default. And when you use this SharePoint connector, it doesn't matter, choose the SharePoint connector, which of those folders you're pointing to. It will still work from one point to the other. So do we have any licensing cost for SharePoint? SharePoint does have a few different flavors. So one of the things that we didn't mention is the different types of SharePoint. So you have SharePoint, the regular kind of standard that you pay for SharePoint. You have a license, you paid for it. There's also the free version of SharePoint. This will work with either. There could be licensing costs for SharePoint. There may not be. It depends upon the version that you require for your organization. So there's a question here coming from somebody who runs a consulting company. Is there a development edition of Professional and Enterprise? If you're interested in being part of our partner program, you would absolutely be able to participate in using a development version of it to help you with getting your projects up on the road with your clients. So I would invite you to go to the partner section on our website and check that out. So is that SharePoint 2010 full or Foundation as well? So that, once again, that's both. Is there a limit to how many files can be uploaded or limits to file size? There are some limits when it gets to the larger files, but there are definitely ways to handle that. Your typical documents, whether they're PDFs or Word files or Excel files or what have you, should have no problem. If you have larger files, that's definitely something that can be tweaked with either configuration, and there's other options as well, so you can do that. So is there a maximum number of synchronization items? There is not a maximum number of synchronization items at this time. It can be any number that you would like. So another question, are there specifics available for the security used to connect DNN inside a firewall to the website outside of firewall or DMZ? We can definitely provide you that information. That's something that we can help you with. Just go ahead and contact us. We have some contact information here, and we can provide that to you. So can you add, delete, or sync images that are displayed? If you are using SharePoint in more of an asset management type of role, and you're not just storing documents but also images, that is possible. That isn't the main use case, but that is possible. So does this SharePoint connector sync only documents or also contents? That's a great question. So we were talking about documents. Document management with SharePoint is really the big driver. It's the big thing that everybody uses SharePoint for, and so that's what we focused on. There are plans to enhance and expand on that functionality. So you're going to see a lot more features coming to this in the future, but at this point, it's only documents. So does the SharePoint connector work with any CMS or just DotNetNuke? This is built specifically for Enterprise Edition of DotNetNuke. It's not built for any other content management system. So from DotNetNuke, can you link to a folder in SharePoint and show that folder document tree in DotNetNuke? Now, one of the things that I intended to show you today was how you actually connect it. And it's a very slick UI to where you actually select from, in SharePoint, you connect the two, like I mentioned earlier, and then from there you're able to see the different views and folders that you have in SharePoint and even the different sites. And so you select the views from the various sites that you want and you map them directly to folders in DotNetNuke. And so from within SharePoint you do see that tree. Depending on how you upload those folders, or those files into DotNetNuke, you could end up with a similar result on DotNetNuke as well. It's really up to you how you intend to configure this. Fantastic question. So can you push questions, or excuse me, can you push items in SharePoint that are in a local network to an internet site without opening ports and so on? So this works through WCF, so you shouldn't have to open any additional ports that you might you might be afraid of opening. So this should work just fine, and especially because this is a one-way tool. It doesn't require that information coming back. So you can, even if you open up your, even if you do need to open up ports, it would be one direction only. So can I upload documents to SharePoint libraries through DotNetNuke? At this time, that's not the way this particular tool will work at this time. So that's an intentional thing at this moment, just because doing that would require that you'd have the internet connector. And in some ways that could work against you if you're using workflow in SharePoint. So is there a module for, no, sorry, that's incomplete question. So besides documents in SharePoint, can you point to content in SharePoint that go into DotNetNuke modules? There is a module out there called SharePoint Nuke that allows you to import lists into DotNetNuke. I have never used it, so I don't know how well it works, but I do know it exists and it's open source. So you can find that on our Forge on our website. So if you go to forge.dotnetnuke.com, you can find you should be able to find SharePoint Nuke there, and if you don't find it there, you definitely find it on codeplex.com. So we are currently using SharePoint 2010 Enterprise and .NET Enterprise. Do we have to use a document library, or can we link directly to SharePoint instead? You can use one or both. It's really up to you. If you just want to upload the files into your file system in .NET you can do that. If you would also like to have some additional management to use the categorization and different views and features that are in document library, that is a benefit of uploading to the folder and file structure that you have in document library. You can choose to do that as well. I would suggest, just because of the power of how you can display documents in document library on your .NET site and permissions and categorization that you have in that, I would suggest that you absolutely still upload to your document library, but do your document management in SharePoint if you have both tools in-house. So there's a question about recording. We definitely are recording this. We'll make that available within the next 24 or 48 hours. So we'll definitely get to that. So what's the cost range for Enterprise Edition? There is a baseline cost for it, but it really depends on your use case. Because it is licensed per installation, so it depends on what your environment looks like. And also there are concessions that can be made for committing to using .NET Enterprise Edition for a longer period of time. So I would hesitate to give you a price because that price, even the baseline price, may not be the price you end up getting. It just depends on your use case. Does DotNetNuke support Arabic language? DotNetNuke has a lot of language packs that are available freely for download, and so you can find that under the resources area of our website. So go under resources and you can find language packs including Arabic. So there's a question about what languages do we support. We have a comprehensive localization tool or feature that's in the product. So you can go ahead and download any of the languages that you would like to have installed into your platform, but we do have 5 specific languages that are supported by DotNetNuke Corporation, and they include French, German, Spanish, Italian, and English. So you're able to have all those, and so any other languages, those languages are available on our website as well. But they're not officially supported by DotNetNuke Corporation. They are community supported. So when you delete a document from SharePoint, does a link and associated picture on the website get removed too? It's a fantastic question. So I kind of went over that just briefly. But what happens when you have the synchronization tool is you set up the synchronization and you have a checkbox to decide whether or not you want synchronizations to happen or to adhere to deletions. So if you check that checkbox to allow synchronization of the deleted files, what you're able to do is when the synchronization job runs, the deleted files will also be deleted in .NET Nuke. So at that point, that any area that particular document or image might be linked to, it will be a broken link. However, you can choose to not synchronize deletions. So while these are all copies of these files that are transferred from one server environment to the other, if you do not choose to synchronize deletions, those files will not be deleted from your .NET Nuke website. So how is synchronization set up? Is it set up for each SharePoint site, and is there a way to set up one common connector without requiring users to use one document library? It's a fantastic question. So in SharePoint, it does kind of have this multi-tenancy feature to where you have one master site and then you have all these site collections, so these child sites that you might have. The SharePoint connector is installed at the top level, and so it is available for you to create synchronization items from any one of these sites. And when you choose to have a synchronization job, you are able to choose documents from any of the document libraries that are on there. So it's not requiring you to use just one document library. Another great question. How are document permissions handled from SharePoint to the .NET Nuke site? Can SharePoint users using users group permissions for the .NET Nuke site? Well, I'm not sure how the rest of that goes, but how are document permissions handled from SharePoint to the .NET Nuke site? So the way this works is, once again, you get the best of both worlds. So you have all the permissions and workflow and features in SharePoint. You continue to use that as much as you want. Once these documents get into .NET Nuke, they would have different permissions. So whatever permissions you decide to have for these documents is what they will have. So this is going to expose your documents to things like the site search and even search from search engines. It's going to also allow you to use the granular permissions in .NET Nuke to decide what documents are visible to which groups of people, or are they public. And then you'd be able to use them in any of the modules. So once a document is uploaded to .NET Nuke, at that point, anybody who's already administrating .NET Nuke, they have no idea where the document came from, whether or not it got updated, unless they have access to see the log. But from that point forward, it's a seamless transition. They are able to completely use that document as if they just uploaded themselves. It's a completely transparent experience. So somebody wanted to know where you can get .NetNuke. You can get that from our downloads page. So you can click downloads on any page on our website, or go to downloads.dotnetnuke.com. So there's a question about workflow. So workflow is content workflow in .NetNuke. So they're asking about if this workflow is about assigning tasks to people, but this is a content workflow. So it allows you to create content in .NetNuke. So it's HTML-based content, and quite honestly, that's like 9 times out of 10 exactly the content you would be managing on your .NetNuke site. But what this allows you to do, the content workflow, is you're able to create custom workflows for the people on your website, and then you are able to, per those workflows, assign them to different areas on your site, whether it's just one single module on a page throughout your entire site, or an entire page, or the entire site. And then you can create as many different types of workflows as you want. These workflows can have any number of people involved in the approval processes, and then once it gets through the approval process, then whatever content that was proposed by the content author will be published to the public site. Once again, providing everybody approved it. We do have a webinar that goes over that. If you go to our webinar page, it's the Professional Edition webinar, and that one goes over content workflow in great detail. So okay, this is a fantastic question as well. Is the SharePoint connector installed on the web server or the SharePoint server? So by default, you will have a bit that's already installed on your Enterprise Edition of .NetNuke. This will be primarily to handle security and logging, and make sure that the documents that you choose to go to .NetNuke, they're put in the right places. Now, but the primary area where you would manage all this is all in SharePoint. So if you're already familiar with managing SharePoint, you would manage everything about the document, about the SharePoint connector on your SharePoint site. So the installation happens there, the initial connection to .NetNuke happens there, and the ongoing synchronization, whether you're creating new synchronization items or you're modifying existing ones, would happen there. So there's virtually no management required for this on your .NetNuke site, but you can see comprehensive logging on your .NetNuke site, and if you needed to change your security standards, there's a security key mechanism. You can change that, in case you needed to rotate that for any reason, or you just wanted to change it for security reasons. This is another great question. Is there a limitation on how many users can contribute in a commercial setting? So I'm assuming this is a question about users in .NetNuke. So this is a great time to talk about one of the ways that this benefits your organization. You may have users that are logging into SharePoint on a regular basis simply as for a read-only view of documents. And as we all know, every person that logs into SharePoint, we usually have to pay for them. If you wanted to get rid of that cost, you can definitely use .NetNuke in the Enterprise Edition to feed these documents to a .NetNuke site and give them a read-only view of these documents. So if they don't have to participate in workflow in any way and they just need to read them, then there's no reason why you shouldn't move to this more of a model to where you're just redisplaying these documents on your .NetNuke site. So somebody's looking to build a site where the customers would update documents, they would fill out forms, assign queue-based tasks. Would .NetNuke be a good option? I haven't found a use case yet. I've been working with .NetNuke for almost the entire 9 years it's been out. Part of that time has been under consultancy. I've run entire businesses on it, including like a travel company that sold travel, kind of like your Orbitz or your Travelocity.coms and stuff like that. And so far, I haven't found a use case where .NetNuke wouldn't fit. If you have a website and you have availability to run your website on the Microsoft platform, it is the most flexible platform that I know And when we're talking about built-in features, we're talking about out of the box versus features that are available to you without having to write a single line of code. There's very few things that can touch that. So is there a way to manage permissions across SharePoint and DotNetNuke by document? The permissions, once you get to DotNetNuke, are not document by document based, but folder based. Currently you would be assigning permissions to a folder in DotNetNuke. Is there a single sign-on feature that can be integrated with Active Directory? There is a we support a Active Directory provider that you would find in our Forge. Once again, that's forge.dotnetnuke.com, and so it's an open source one, but we support this one. It's and Forge is forge.dotnetnuke.com, and in there, when you find the Active Directory provider, you would be able to install that and connect DotNetNuke to Active Directory, so you'd be able to have a seamless experience there. So can you deploy DotNetNuke in Windows Azure Cloud? You absolutely can. There is once again an open source project called DotNetNuke, DotNetNuke's Azure Accelerator is what I believe you call it, or what it's called. And once again, you can find that in our Forge, and that's currently maintained by one of our founders as well as a DotNetNuke employee, and that accelerator allows you to deploy DotNetNuke in the Windows Azure Cloud. And in our video library on our website, you can also find a video on how it works as well. So it's, I think, like a 10-minute video, and it very clearly outlines how DotNetNuke in Azure works and how to use that accelerator project to make it happen. I see a note here about the links aren't working right, so I'll definitely, when we follow up with you via email, we'll go ahead and send you the full links there. One or more of them may have expired, but all these links are just one click away once you go to dotnetnuke.com. So there are administrative controls to prevent SharePoint users from adding, deleting content to website. So that's really up to you and how you create your views. So once you already have views that you're creating in SharePoint. Now, you could reuse the same exact views for publishing these documents to your .NET site, or you can create very specific views that rely on, maybe certain workflow states, or whatever type of workflow or view permissions that you decide to have. And so those are the controls in SharePoint that you would use to prevent SharePoint users from just creating a document inside a specific view and it being published to the website. That's a very real concern, and so you can prevent that from happening by customizing your views. Can you buy only SharePoint Connector as a separate module? No, you cannot. It's only available in the Enterprise Edition. Is there a trial edition of Enterprise? There absolutely is. To get the trial edition of Enterprise, because it does require an additional level of support sometimes for some of you, we do ask that you contact us to get that one. Professional edition is a click away on our website. You just go to the download section. You can choose Professional edition. For Enterprise edition, just ask us. We'll give it to you. And so that's a 30-day fully functional trial. So whether we're talking about Professional or Enterprise Edition, you can use it fully functioning for 30 days, absolutely no commitments, no cost, and it's fully functioning. Once again, there's no limits there. So okay, so there's a question about, there's several questions about seeing the SharePoint connector. We fully intended to show you everything live. We just ran into, a slight bug. As I noted, it's not coming out until Q2, and so Q2 is just right around the corner. So what you were going to be seeing was beta, and as with beta things, it wasn't quite to the point to where I can completely show you everything. So we will have a follow-up, whether it's a video or a full-fledged webinar. We will have a follow-up where we completely show you all these features live. Do you have different pricing structures for nonprofits and specifically higher education? We definitely do. You just have to contact us, and we'll definitely give you different pricing for that. And it looks like the rest of these are repeat questions. I'm reading through them, and we're coming up to the end of our time. Okay, this is a good question. So what about hosted .NET sites? So the SharePoint or the SharePoint connector in Enterprise Edition, it's not dependent upon you hosting .NET on premise. If you are hosting it either on a VPS, a virtual server, or a dedicated server, or if you're running a business, I wouldn't necessarily suggest shared hosting, but you can run this on virtually any hosting environment, but it does require WCF support. So not every host supports that, or that you have to ask for it, so that you do. It does have that additional requirement. All right. So if a synced document on .NET is changed in SharePoint, will be overwritten by SharePoint during the next synchronization. It absolutely will. That's the intent here, is for you to do your document management in SharePoint, and so that way when the synchronization happens, the most recent version of that document is presented and automatically available on your .NET site. The intent here is to save you time and not forcing you to do anything manual here. Okay, so there's just a couple more questions here, and all right, so there's two questions here that haven't already been asked. So one of them is support for LDAP. There is once again, there's an open source extension out there to allow you to use LDAP in .NET. It works very similar to how you might use for how you might use Active Directory, for example. So that's once again, go to forge.dotnetnuke.com, look up LDAP, and you should find it there. So the last one, what does a developer have to do to get a test version to run in a non-development environment? .NET will run on Windows 7, Windows XP, Windows Vista. Typically, I do these demos on Windows 7. So if you are on a development environment, you would install .NET very much exactly the same way you would do in a production environment. You would just do it on usually a different version of Windows. But it'll also, for production environments, and even some people develop in these versions of Windows, but you would use Windows Server 2003 or 2008. So it'll run on all of those. And as far as the back end for it, for developers, SQL Server 2005 and 2008 are the supported versions of SQL Server for .NET. And that's every edition except for Compact, so you can even run it on Express. Let's see here. So that's the end of our time. So thank you for attending, and once again, I apologize for, and there was a lot of questions. Thank you so much for the questions. We were able to fill up our entire time block with all these questions. But once again, apologize for not being able to actually show you this in action. That was going to be the most exciting part here, but looks like you were all very happy with the answers here. So we will definitely follow up with a video or webinar. We'll definitely keep an eye on our webinar page and our follow-up email, and we'll let you know how we're going to do that. So we're going to get that done for you as soon as possible, as well as have the follow-up information that we just mentioned. So thank you for your time. I hope it was valuable still, and so enjoy the rest of your day or evening.